Cadillac grills, Cadillac mills. Check out the oil, my Cadillac.
Watch yourself, shake your ass. I came there with my front like they had the manpower like more or less, more so. Oh my dog, it's bigger than him, ha, him.
Ain't going on. You say it's puppy love. We say it's full grown.
Season 3.
All right. Welcome back to Rap of Ages Season 3, our podcast where we're breaking down the best hip-hop hits from the year Y2K, talking about what was happening, why it was popular, what they were thinking, and where it all went wrong.
Where did it all go wrong, Brian?
Oh, this week, can I say it's when one of the most critically acclaimed rappers of the past 25 years has never, ever had a #1 single? That's just wrong. So, once again, I'm Brian.
I'm DJ Turntable.
And I'm Jared Johnson. And if you don't know that late 90s and early 2000s hip-hop isn't safe for work, small children, or your virgin ears, well, we don't know how to help you.
You're completely on your own. And as always, check us out on social media and wherever you get your podcasts. We're up on iTunes, Google, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Spotify, and probably a couple more.
Hit us up on that social thing at ROA Podcast on Insta and Twitter, Rap of Ages Podcast on Facebook, Rap of Ages Podcast at Gmail, and of course, don't forget to hit up the reading list on Nook.
Hit us up on Nook.
Nook.
For the hip-hop heads. We are still pumping out the Evolutions mixtapes on the same podcast feeds. For more and links to every possible way to listen, don't forget to check out the webpage, www.rapofages.com, or just shout, play Rap of Ages podcast at your device.
And if you like the show, tell people how awesome we are, subscribe, rate us, write us a review, all that stuff that makes internet things happen, really greatly appreciated. If you don't like the show, we actually now have a member of the squad that has been waiting out the pandemic on a farm in upstate New York. So I don't know what to do. It's
I'm pagerless.
Pony Express? I don't know how to get you a message anymore.
Smoke signal.
So most importantly, and always, thank you very much for listening. All right. So, D, Jared, who we got this week?
I'm going to let Jared kick us off because this song has a deep, special meaning for him.
Common. It's the COMMO to the N. We are talking about Common Sense, now known as Common, Lonnie Rashid Lynn Jr.
Dr. Lonnie
Dr.
Rashid Lynn.
Just like his mama.
Honorary,
Common,
but still.
Yes. Common Chicago native, as he mentions in almost every song and interview and any time he opens his mouth. He was born in Chicago. Coming up, he was in a group called CDR, who actually opened for some pretty big names when they were in high school, like NWA and Big Daddy Kane. And he was noted by The Source as one of their unsigned hypes. And that kind of boosted his reputation, and he came out with his first album in the early 90s.
Common is really regarded right now as one of the renaissance men of hip-hop. Of course, you will see him all over the television and media and even Broadway, and he has his own podcast. But one of the original real socially conscious MCs, he might disagree with that moniker, but he's in sort of a very separate group of musicians from this time that started to become popular or more mainstream, let's say, in the late 90s, along with Talib Kweli, Mos Def, and a number of other artists who are in the same sphere, really, in New York and Chicago at that time. So I think he was an important artist for us to cover from that perspective.
Yeah, and talking about those kind of the people that you associate with him, in my mind, This album is inextricably linked with those artists you talked about, as well as the Roots as well. Like Things Fall Apart, the Black Star album, Black on Both Sides, Train of Thought, and this album are all just like in one big pile in my mind. When I was in college, my RA actually introduced me to this whole form of rap that I really, in high school, I just had no exposure to. I just didn't listen to any of that. I knew Redefinition, from the Black Star album, from the chorus basically, but the rest of this stuff I kind of learned about in college, and I was just like, oh, this is like a whole new kind of hip hop that I really enjoyed a lot.
Common goes from, coming out as onto the scene 91, 92, has Resurrection in 94, and then I think this is really his next big album in that span. This was, or did he have something in 98
He had
between there?
97, I think. One Day It'll All Make Sense, although that definitely
Yep.
wasn't as big as this or Resurrection was.
So you're right. So it was like Water for Chocolate.
Right. And so into that period in the late 90s, I wanted to get into the Soulquarians a little bit, just getting back to the genre that Common belongs to. And I know, Jared, you mentioned that really made Common make sense for you.
Comments. Yeah, it's interesting when reading about this. So he, from Chicago, and in 1999, before he wrote this album, he moved to New York. He signed with MCA, which was the first major record label he was associated with, and he kind of got up with this group who I didn't realize that this was even a thing. It was kind of a collective of artists called the Soulquarians, which included Questlove, Erykah Badu, D'Angelo, Q-Tip, Mos Def, Talib Kweli, some other record producers, and it's just a very, I know that some of them don't like the moniker, but just a conscious rap, a lot of social and political issues, a lot of Afrocentrism, and it's really a lot of exploration of music that I think, compared to a lot of other hip hop at the time, there's a very big focus on R&B and soul and funk, and they just incorporate a lot of different styles of music into the albums.
You know what threw me here was I loved all of these artists individually, but unlike some of the East Coast or West Coast groups that where they kind of shout each other, we're like DMX, that's my man's in them, or like yeah, that's Drag On. It's like they don't really call each other out. So not until we dug into this research did I really realize how linked all these artists were. That they were all part of this group, this Soulquarian group, if you will. I just realized like they make this style of music. I like them too. I didn't realize they were all connected.
Yeah, and they're all on each other's albums and songs. Like it's less shouting out, like you're saying, but they're all on each other's albums, throughout this whole time period.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I want to just mention two groups that are maybe lesser known, but were equally important, especially in the beat production. DITC, Digging in the Crates. A number of the artists from that group went on to become producers. I think we talked about Digging in the Crates on one of the previous
Yeah,
episodes. And this episode, we're going to talk about Slum Village a little bit. And Jay Dilla, the producer of this track, was a member of Slum Village. And there were, groups like this that were around New York at the time, and these were like groups that real hip hop heads listened to. You weren't hearing it on the radio. You weren't going to hear about them from any of the mainstream media. It was really, you're at a house party or you're with your friends or whatever. You like Common, have you heard of this? And a lot of these groups, what I'm realizing, were much more important than their own music because they were forming the backbone of a number of popular rap tracks. And I think a lot of artists that made it huge owe a lot of their success to the backbone of the beats and the research and the like obscure music samples that these guys were putting together.
yeah, definitely. And you can hear it in his albums specifically. I mean, he's evolved a lot as an artist over his career. If you listen to Can I Get a Dollar, it's very like boom bap. It's very early 90s. You know, a lot of the content of the music is much different than later on in his career, but you can hear the music shifting as well, especially on this album. I mean, he definitely in Resurrection, there's a lot of kind of jazzy undertones. I don't think it's so much soul and other forms of music like this album. It's almost like a Tribe Called Quest. That album reminds me a lot of. But definitely on this album, you can hear a lot of the Soulquarian influence.
So Common is traditionally regarded as a lo-fi artist. A lot of these groups use lo-fi beats, and you know, uh, lo-fi. You've got hi-fi, and you've got hi-fi. And I would like to pop quiz Brian on the difference between lo-fi, hi-fi, and hi-fi.
Well, lo-fi definitely is like more like mellow and chill. Um, like good study music, good vibe music. The difference between hi-fi and hi-fi, I'm gonna go with kind of the maybe like the physical equivalent of a high five versus a jumping high five. Just one has a little bit extra oomph to it. And if that's
That is
wrong,
not a terrible answer.
I got nothing else. I have nothing left to give.
So lo-fi, you're right on that. It's it's chilled, it's relaxed, but it's also low fidelity, and what that means is you're going to hear a lot more errors in the beats and in the music, and it's going to sound a lot more like vinyl. It's going to be warmer. You might hear some like you'll hear this on like Common and Talib Kweli's albums. There's kind of like that staticky, a little bit of clicking stuff in the background, which kind of gives you that warmth, that feel of a vinyl. It's not going to be precise. High fidelity, of course, is going to be more digital sounding, more precise, dead on beats. And hyphy, the Bay Area rap music, is yeah, a form of kind of amped up hip hop that's going to be a little more like you're jumping high five,
Nailed it.
if you will.
I will actually. I will. Now, would you take that into consideration? Like, is it the style that maybe doesn't warrant um, radio play, or because this is the one thing that I struggled with answering, which is why I was excited to ask the question before we maybe get into the song a little bit. Was you know I mentioned in the intro that Common has just been there all the time, and if you talk about like I feel like all of his albums are like critically acclaimed. Like critics love his stuff, but I don't think this is one of his best rated songs that we're going to cover, and it didn't crack the top 10. He's never cracked the top 10 for individual singles. I think he cracked the top 5 once or twice as uh, with another artist for some of his songs, but his song just doesn't get a lot of mainstream success or him as an artist. And it's hard for me to grapple with why do we think he's not as mainstream popular or successful as some of the other artists that have come along in the past 20 years.
Well, that, Brian, is a perfect segue to Moment of Clarity and Jay-Z's take on Common, which is, of course, truthfully, I want to rhyme with common sense, but I did 5 no and I ain't been rhyming common sense.
Hmm.
So, I watched an interview that actually asked Common about this line, and he was like happy to be mentioned. He was like, I can't hate on it. It's true. I'm not making music to be popular. Um, and so, his albums, they're all pretty good. Like, it's rare you hear like a bad Common song, but you're not cracking that top 10. You're not pushing the ceiling with the music. But I don't think he's trying to. He is trying to write music that, comes from his heart, just trying to keep it real. And he's, I think, a good example of someone who's actually had a pretty good deal of success with it, even though he's not going to be in your superstar like Jay-Z, Kanye, Biggie, Pac kind of category.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think in terms of, maybe record sales and chart topping singles, he's not there with all these other people. But I mean, he's definitely well recognized. He's won a ton of awards for his musical work as well as some acting stuff. But yeah, I think that there's just a difference between the mass appeal of hip hop and artists like him and the Roots and Mos Def and Talib. Like they're just not as widely received as a Ludacris, a Nelly, some of the other artists that we've been talking about this season.
It's so interesting to me when you get like a rapper's rapper like this. Like everybody loves Common Sense, but no, and Common, but nobody. It, he just even if when he's got a great song like this, again, it doesn't get a lot of airplay, which is just shocking when like everybody loves it, but it doesn't get played, and that's where you wonder. You're like, why is the uh, shaking your ass stuff so much more popular than a song like this, which the beat's great, the lyrics are great. It's still got a lot of good popular themes, so it's always interesting to me. Um,
So I want to kind of challenge the premise a little bit of Common as the rapper's rapper because I do think Common has sort of broken very mainstream. He is on your television, he is all over the place right now. Common has permeated pop culture in a crazy way. He has been all over media, film, has a net worth of not Jay-Z's billionaire, but near $50 million. So it's a little hard to still
that's
call him
fine.
any sort of underground
He's doing
uh,
fine.
rapper. He's doing great. He's a Renaissance man. He's out there, but he is well above ground at this point in his career.
That is fair. That is fair. So
So why was this song popular?
yeah, it's a good transition into the song itself. So the song that we are covering The Light. I'm definitely going to let Jared take why it was popular, but we are covering his second single, The Light, which is off released the album Like Water for Chocolate. It was released March 28th, 2000. It was his first major label album release. And it also went gold. It was his first album to ever go gold. So the single "The Light" was released in July 18th of the year 2000, and it is famed as a love letter to his girlfriend at the time, Erica Badu.
Who's also
People
featured in the
love a
video.
celebrity couple.
Indeed.
Also true.
So I will pass the mic. Why was it popular, Jared?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons. Like you said, it is a love song. And in the world of hip hop, I think a true love song like this is honestly, I don't even know if I can name another one, to be completely honest with you, that really has somebody open up like he does. I mean, hip hop is such a overwhelmingly misogynistic and sexist and violent uh music form at times. It's not about feelings, and he just kind of really opens up on this song, and it's like a poem basically. And I think that is kind of a breath of fresh air. You know, people love songs, the general public, and additionally, the music on the track is just fantastic. This track was produced by Jay Dilla, like you mentioned, of Slum Village before. It has a sample from Bobby Caldwell called "Open Your Eyes," which I didn't realize he was also from the '90s. This his album was from '91. I thought this was an older song, but it's a bright song, bright music. Like when it opens up, it makes you feel light, and I think that Dilla really did a good job of keeping the soul of the original song intact. Like it's not really just cut up into a million pieces where it's unrecognizable. Um, I don't know. That's my take. What do you guys think?
So yeah, I think the beat and the beat production and the sample have a lot to do with it because it's really like it strikes you. Um, Bobby Caldwell. It was a little bit earlier his track, not super old, and it's got a very very famous drum beat on it from the Detroit Emeralds, which apparently was used by a number of artists and a number of tracks, including like Pac and Cool J and
Mm.
um, Raekwon and a number of others. So it's again one of those songs that like will trick you immediately into liking it because it's just very well put together. And then you've got, I do mean it when I say the power couple, right? This was pre Jay Z, Beyonce, like Common and Erica Badu. She was at the time still a pretty famous
Yeah, real
artist.
hot.
them kind of, figuring it out, being together, and I think the genuineness of it, like you said, and it's got all those kind of nice elements to it, easy to listen to. It's kind of got just a cool vibe.
Yeah, I definitely love the vibe, and I love um, a lot of the lyrics too that you'll get into is it's not what's the right way to put it? It's not really a mushy love song. Like it is very poetic in he, the style of words that he uses, and he kind of still in a masculine way, but he kind of counters the sexism of saying I'm not going to call you my bitch because there's power in a name. Like it's not a puppy love kind of thing. It's like a deep emotional, kind of spiritual love that he has, which I think is really really cool, and the power of the lyrics helps to deliver that, and of course lay it on. His voice is always great, which is I think why he always continues to have popularity. On top of a hot beat, on top of a hot kind of feels like a classicy hook, kind of. It's just it's a win win all around.
So what I'd like to do, and I've been struggling with how to cover this because number one, you can understand every word he says, so you don't really have to do a lot of explaining about this song. Um, and it's very clear what the song is, right? Love letter to his girlfriend. They're, at the time they're in their late 20s. He's in his late 20s. They're kind of still figuring out. He talks about this song on his Broadway play, Bluebird Memories, where, he's kind of like just basically still kind of a man child at that time, living in the city. He's got his boys, he's figuring things out, and, doesn't really know what he wants out of life and is trying to make a relationship work. And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. But I want to pick up on what Jared said and just pick out some pieces of this that really kind of flip hip hop norms on their head. Because he's got a number of lines that really, I think, are striking because they take what you're used to hearing in hip hop and put a total 180 spin on it. And so, if we look at like the first verse, right? Like you go to middle of the line where he says, "I know your heart is withered by what studs did to you. I ain't gonna assault them because I probably did it too." So what is that? How does that kind of flip the normal script for you?
Yeah, I would say for me, I love this. He's admitting that he's probably done the same things that some of the other guys have done. Just kind of it's the cultural norm, so he's not going to hate on them for doing it, even though he recognizes the emotional pain that it caused. Um, but he also kind of admits that that was them, but this is you, and that for us, it's now different. All kind of is conveyed by those two lines.
And he's not above it either.
Yeah,
He's,
it's all about the recognition and just I think a lot about this song is about recognizing where you're at and just trying to better yourself as well and just always moving upwards.
so let me ask Jared if anyone else has some other lines they want to talk about in the first verse.
Yeah, I think one of the other lines that strikes me from that first verse is I want to be the one to make you happiest and hurt you the most. I think that's
That's a
just
great one.
it's just such a deep line, and it's just it also it's like you want to be so inextricably just tied and close to this person that when you do something wrong, you're kind of just together as one, and go through highs and lows together, and all the highest highs and the highest lows.
And I think that goes back to like looking at Common as, someone in his 20s without a lot of experience in relationships. And he goes back in his autobiography and is like, yeah, I didn't know what a healthy relationship was at that time.
Mhm. I love the one right
And
before that too, where he's talking
yeah,
about like if relationship is effort, I will match your work, rather than the classic line of that I need a bitch that's down for me, and just yeah, girls come and go. This is something where he's recognizing, the work that it takes to build and maintain relationships, and he's saying that, not only do I recognize you're putting in work, but I'm gonna equal that because I know that's how important this is to us.
And then, in the second verse, I think, the line you said, I never call you my bitch or even my boo. There's so much more in a name and so much more in you. Yeah. I think that's probably the kind of defining line of the song for me.
Yeah, I agree. When I think of hip hop, quote unquote, love songs, I mean, honestly, the first, aside from this song, that one of the earliest songs that I had heard of that could even be construed as that is the Biggie song, which is Me and My Bitch. And it's like, this is like, you can't be in more direct contrast from this line to that song.
So, Jared, other hip hop love songs. Can any of them touch this?
No, they can't. Some are in the same realm.
No, they can't. Moving on.
I mean, what do you guys
Screw
think
those
of?
songs.
What do you guys think of when you think about a hip hop? Like, what comes to mind?
So for me, it's "You Got Me" by The Roots.
Okay.
There's a number of cool versions of that. Is that Erykah Badu on that also?
Yeah.
So I would say that one for sure.
I think of Puffy and Faith's love song, the Notorious B.I.G. after he died.
Yeah, but that's not the same.
Totally not the same, but that's the one I think of.
Yeah, and I think of like Dear Mama, but I'm specifically like Partners. There's just not that
Mind
much.
Sex, Dead Prez
Yeah.
is up there.
Yeah, I was looking through, I Googled like hip hop love songs, and the things that came up, I was just like, how is this being considered a love? Like I said,
I need a ride or die
right,
chick.
And what I think, well, one of the things, I think in a lot of these songs, it's not so much like the defining characteristic of a good woman is loyalty above anything else.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's not the love, it's not how you feel with them. It's like, if something happens, you got
She better
my
be
back.
down to ride.
You got a gun, right? You're not going
Ride
to
or Die,
snitch.
Bonnie and Clyde,
Yeah.
97.
Yeah. And it's like, so like in Me and My Bitch by Biggie, like I just picked out certain lines from these songs to try to, contrast them with the lines in this song. So he says, when the time is right, the wine is right, I treat you right. You talk slick, I beat you right. It's like, okay, that's nice. And, they had like Biz Markie, Just a Friend, which is not really a love song. It's about a woman who's with another guy. But, I asked her what's her name. She said, blah, blah, blah. Where it's like, in contrast to Common, when he's like, there's so much in a name, so much more in you. Hey Lover by LL Cool J. When it's kind of like, it's much more sexually driven. But if you actually look at the lyrics, the whole thing is a fantasy. Like, she has a man the whole time. He's imagining what he would do if he had her, but he doesn't. And at the end, he's like, well, nothing's going to happen because you have a man and we're not together.
If I
do
recall the
think
music video, I believe that song is about 4 minutes, and 2.5 minutes of them is LL Cool J licking his lips and flexing his abs.
Well, that's just every LL Cool J video. They had Looking at Me by Mace on there, when one of the lines is, can't get too loud, got respect for you, honey, but keep it all real, you come second to my money. So just making sure we know that it's there.
Know your role.
But I do think Mind Sex is up there. There's a De La Soul song called I Know, and one of the lines is, sex is a mere molecule in this world of love that I have for you, which I thought was like, oh, that's pretty deep. And there's also a song called Shaquilla by Poor Righteous Teachers, which I think, compared to all the other songs, is kind of closest to this song. But as you guys, I'm sure, have never heard of it before, it did not have the same commercial success that
Shaquilla.
Yeah. So he's really in a class of his own with this song, I think. I mean, it's just a beautiful, it doesn't even need music or anything else to it. Just the lyrics alone is just a beautiful song.
I'm going to give you one you didn't think of, and you can tell me, you can take it or leave it. I'm going to throw it out there. If you don't like it, throw it on back. Lottie Dottie by Snoop Dogg.
Well, originally by Slick Rick.
Originally, but Snoop's version in particular is not only a bit of a love song, but a love song to himself.
Okay.
Listen, I just need someone to love me as much as Snoop loves the marijuana. All right, you want to talk about a true love song? Snoop loves to get high. He
It's all
just won.
because of you. I'm feeling sad and blue. You went away. Now my life is filled with rainy days. I
That's
love
not
you
even
so.
him. That's
How
not even
much you'll
him.
never know.
You took your dope away from me. And that's not even him, that part.
That's true. Yeah, exactly right. Like it's and so the first time I heard this song, I had listened to the song "Her," and which of course has big spoiler alert here. It's not about a woman. Um, it's got the twist at the end, right, where it's what I'm talking about is hip hop. And so when this album came out and he's got another love song on it, I'm like, oh, this is like a sequel to Her, right? Like, is this gonna have some kind of thing at the end? It's really actually just a metaphor or whatever, and um, it's not at all, right? Like it's the opposite of that. And so it really is that notice of like, oh, this is like how you should treat someone, or how you should treat someone in a relationship. You shouldn't, call them names. You shouldn't, be abusive and all those things. So it is kind of like a breath of fresh air into the genre, I think. And a lot of the reason I think it's popular was something different at the time, right? It was cutting against the grain of where a lot of the money, violence, and misogyny were going in hip hop.
Yeah, and I also like in this verse, I think along with what Brian said in the last verse, the if relationship is effort and will match your work. I think that and this line, why can't it be anything worth having you work at annually? Those are like his two. Really, I think that's common relationship advice. Like those two lines, like you can be from like a therapist.
My favorite line in verse 2 is the one after that, which again, I love the lines that make you think. And he actually goes and explains it too, which is what I was thinking, but it takes a little bit. Is the granted we've known each other for some time, but it doesn't take a whole day to recognize sunshine. With the whole concept and idea that they've been around, they've been friendly, but he's known she was special from day one. He didn't need to get with her first. He knew that she was something uh, different before they even got together. Um, I thought that was such poetry and such an incredible way to to phrase that. Um, and it's I think that might be my favorite line in the whole song, or right at the very end of verse 2.
I mean, what makes this song different too is exactly that. It's poetry. It's not your typical like rap lyrics. And if you listen like to his delivery, and then you listen to Amanda Gorman, who just our poet laureate, who just did the inauguration and the
Very
Super
similar.
Bowl. You see where she gets a lot of her cadence from, a lot of the delivery, and like how songs like this have reverberated and have had an influence on other artists beyond writers, beyond rap writers and others. So it really is kind of a different song in that aspect. So third verse, unless we have anything else on the second, a lot of nice kind of metaphors in here, and he's got all the poetic language about night and light, and so you have the dark and the light and the all the metaphors for someone bringing lightness into his life, which is really nice. The whole day to recognize sunshine, but you also have the cold sad night's moon, you my light, heaven had a height, you would be that tall, which is um, all of it really nicely written.
It's just beautiful.
It really is. Um, Third verse. Um,
I think that same poetry, but it's that same light and dark, right in the middle of verse 3 when he says, "You know to give me space when it's time to. My heart's dictionary defines you. It's happiness and love and happiness." Um, Again, you hear that, you're just like, wow, it's just so well said and depicted. You're like, I get it, man, I get it.
You've got the as my, I know the sex ain't gonna keep you, but as my equal, it's how I must treat you. And getting back into groups, like Dead Prez and The Roots, and you know, there are a few others that are talking about this stuff, but it certainly wasn't mainstream at the time, and there's certainly uh, you had to kind of dig for songs like this that were really portraying more equality between men and women and more kind of healthy, respectful relationships. Let's take just a quick minute on the chorus, and why that's kind of, I think, an interesting chorus, and I think what holds the song together. Um, Jared, anything you've got on this one?
On the chorus,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just beautifully sung. This is kind of where the title of the song comes in. It's more of just the lightness and brightness and love, and just kind of being there with somebody, which is just not present much in really other hip hop songs in this way.
Yeah, and it's also the just kind of like weird haunting sound of it too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it definitely got that kind of ethereal, kind of ghostly sound to it. I do enjoy that element. I also do like, for me, it just helps to put a point on the fact that there are times when you'll need someone, I'll be by your side. There is a light that shines special for you and me. So the whole thing is basically about like he's getting everything he needs by being there for her. Like that's exactly what fuels and motivates him, is doing things for her, which is perfectly, I think, encapsulated in these 15 words, give or take.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful song, amazing poetry, one of the best love songs in hip hop, unequivocally, I think we can say. Does this song go wrong? Does Common go wrong anywhere? I have one thing, which I will reserve for later comment if you guys want to start.
It might be my one thing. Only one thing, and I don't know if this is actually an homage to something else. If not, I love the ending where like this is just so profound. The lyrics are incredible. The poetry, and I shouldn't call it, it's just the poetry in this is just beautiful. Everything has like a inner, deeper meaning. And then he just ends it. He just doesn't know how to end the song. He just ends it with dicka-da, dicka-da, dicka-dicka, dicka-dicka, dicka-da, da-da. Yo, I'll just tell you the rest when I see you. Peace. like he just doesn't know how to end a song. He's like, I could just, yeah, I'm just gonna keep going. I don't know. I'm out. and Finn. Great ending. Nailed it.
Stuck the landing.
He's a gymnast who did this incredible routine, and then he's coming off the pommel horse, and he just broke both his knees on the landing. And he's got his arms up like, I won, superstar.
Got it. Jared?
I don't think anything goes wrong in this song for me. I think Common in this album is still kind of evolving. And there's not really consistency in this message throughout the album. I mean, this is such a positive, just loving, emotional song. And, in other songs in the album, he's like calling Missy Elliott a bitch. And there's a line, and I think it's in Doing It, where he's like, in a circle of faggots, your name is mentioned. It's just like, oh, it's just such a far cry. And then there's just that contrast, I think, is just, he's not quite where he's gonna end up eventually. He's still on his journey
at this point.
Yeah. So I think that's the only thing that kind of takes away from this album, but not this song.
So the only thing about this song, when I went to do the research, so you watch the video, right, which is kind of him and Erykah Badu hanging out, making lovey faces at each other under candlelight. Common has a mango for some reason.
A delicious mango they're eating with a very sharp knife.
Delicious mango that he's cutting. And I assumed, as a casual listener, that this was Erykah Badu singing the chorus, and I thought, oh, how nice. And, and if not her, I assumed a soul sample from some old soul group, as you'll hear in like a lot of, say, Kanye's tracks or whatever these days. And then when I went to research this, and it's like a white guy playing jazz music from the 80s, I was a little surprised. And he's kind of being serenaded by a white 80s jazz man, uh, which I think is kind of funny. And on the one hand, you could say, okay, like look at the creativity of Jay Dilla, and like this is like what it means to find like obscure samples and digging in the crates and all that. But I just wonder if there's more of like a responsibility, or if there's an advantage to using more black artists in your samples, because there's plenty to choose from, especially for something kind of soulful like this. And I'm curious as to both of your thoughts on that.
Hmm. Uh, Not being a record producer, but just sort of thinking, like, I think a lot of these guys, it's just like they just go through records and records and records, and if they hear something that they like, maybe it doesn't matter who it is, and it's just that sample. This is the feeling that they're going for. This is the sound that they want, so we're putting it in.
Yeah, it might be kind of the sign of the times. It's a great question. I wonder if you ask that question now, I think it's yes, probably. But I don't know if that same feeling was mainstream 20 years ago, of the necessity and the requirement of trying to ensure that you are, um, making sure that everybody gets their say, that maybe haven't had an opportunity in the past when they're able to go on like a mainstream album like that. So, um,
Yeah, I just kind of see like a lot of, especially what Kanye's done, bringing back like Otis Redding samples, and just the amount of use of like certain soul artists over and over again in a lot of the music to keep that music alive for a new generation. Or it's also because that's a lot of what they were listening to as kids, right? And like, so there's that nostalgia for that generation of like, yeah, I grew up listening to this at home and I'm going to put a new spin on it. Um, and you would think there would be more of that, and maybe there is on the later albums. I can't say I've researched like all of Common's samples on it, but I don't think it ruins the song in any way. I just think it's kind of an interesting little tidbit about it. It was refreshing, I will say, this week to read someone's short biography, Wikipedia page, what have you, and there not be a long section or any section on legal issues or jail time. Uh, so that was nice. Change of pace.
Yeah,
what a nice boy.
his biggest what is the word I'm looking for?
Scandal?
Challenge?
Scandal. Yes, scandal. His biggest scandal was when they asked him to do some poetry at the White House, and people
Yeah.
from the other side got all up in arms because of his previous lyrics. That's about it.
That's like the Obama tan suit scandal,
Right.
if you can call that a scandal. That's what used to pass for a scandal 10 to 20 years ago.
How undignified.
Brian, does this go wrong for you anywhere?
Uh,
Other than the last line, anywhere else?
no.
No.
Other than the I'm out.
Tick-a-da.
Tick-a-da,
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 tick-a-da-da-da.
I think it's great.
Wait. I just wanted to mention the video real quick because I thought, just the video. Like we already mentioned that Erykah Badu is in the video, and I think at this time, with all these artists in the conscious hip hop scene, I do not think that there is any one king of the conscious hip hop, but she is definitely the queen at this time, undisputed. I just thought that this video it's just a super chill vibe for the whole video. There's like the lava lamp, there's the peeling fruit, there's incense. And I just want to mention is really interesting, and this is like a love song, and in the whole video, they're not in the same scene until the very end, and the only interaction is him like tucking her into bed as she's sleeping, and like he puts his like hand on her back. It's just a very like, again, just not what you would expect from a hip hop song or quote unquote hip hop love song.
It's interesting in terms of like breaking norms on love songs or R&B songs even
Yeah.
for the video, but it's not particularly interesting or compelling. And just one last mention of Erykah Badu. I don't know if you guys listened to the remix of this, because every good song has a remix in the year 2000. And Erykah Badu is actually on the remix, which is essentially the same lyrics with a slightly different beat, and Erykah Badu doing more of the singing, which sounds in theory like it would be better, but is somehow not. And I think it's the lack of the same sample
Yeah,
that
I
really
mean,
makes the song, which is
that Bobby
ironic.
Caldwell's voice is just he has an incredible voice. And I think actually Common didn't even know it was a white guy until later on. He had mentioned
Oh,
in one
really?
of his interviews. Yeah.
His voice is crazy, absolutely crazy. All right, so Common, The Light, great hip hop love song. What would you gentlemen like to rate this song?
Light bulbs.
Could be light bulbs, could be lights, could be digadas,
Koofy hats.
goofy hats. There's a lot of options here.
I think we should do Dickadas.
Dickadas.
Digadas.
And you gotta say as many as you mean.
And he does in fact say it. Oh, it's almost 5 times. Okay. Brian, let's start with you. We'll save Jared for last.
Happy to start. I will go dickada, 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 dickada. I'll see you when I see you. I'll give it a 5. I love this song. It's a great song. It definitely stands out. It's interesting. It's different. I don't know if this song, in terms of longevity, I don't know if this song could possibly age any better and could ever age worse. I don't think that's possible. I think it's an incredible piece of music and relevant in terms of a love story between two people for 50, 100 years. So that's 5 Dickie for me.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, so certainly ages well, certainly culturally relevant, tells a story. Got a great beat, great hook. Can still listen to it today, not get tired of it. I will say it's a little long, but that was the norm of songs of its time. Fun to listen to still, and really not much to criticize here. So, dickada, 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 da da, 5 dickadas.
All right, I am also gonna give it 5 Dickadas.
You gotta say it. If you don't say it, it doesn't mean anything.
Dickada, 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 dickada. This song, I am biased. This song has a special relevance to me and my wife. Francesca, when I met her, she wasn't really well versed in hip hop, so I made this like little hip hop intro CD for her, which she really liked. And then I went on a trip out of the country, and she was like, "Well, I just want a song that kind of reminds me of us, and you of us." So I thought that this was a perfect song in it being a letter, and we were apart at the time, and also part of the third verse really reminds me of her. It's kind of fresh. You listen to more than hip hop, Catch You in the Mix from Beauty the Thrift Shop, along with some other parts of the song. So this was it wasn't our song, but this was the very special song in our relationship. So I'm definitely biased, but it's a 5 Dickada song for me.
How did she feel about the Dickadas? Was that her favorite part?
that was her second.
That was the
favorite.
part that reminded her of Jared. He says that
The
all
stuttering
time around
of the
house.
dickada. I'll tell you everything when I see you.
Peace.
Yo, I tell you the rest when I see you. Peace.
Next week on Rap of Ages, we are going deep down south.
ATL?
AT Aliens, Outcast.
Sorry, Miss Jackson.
Perhaps another great hip hop love song, Jared.
Perhaps.
We'll
I guess
see.
we'll see.
We'll see if I am for real. Thanks for listening.
Dickada. We'll tell you the rest when we see you. Peace.
Peace. Stuck the landing.